Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. You know when they say, you'll just know? That's how I felt when Aaron got down on one knee in the candlelight. We were alone on the balcony of my favorite rooftop restaurant. The skyline sparkled, music drifted up from the street, and he looked so nervous, but in the sweetest way. And then I saw the ring. It was vintage, elegant, and absolutely stunning. "It was my grandmother's," he said, voice a little shaky. "She wanted you to have it." I cried. It was everything I ever dreamed of. I didn't question it. I didn't wonder why I'd never heard about this ring before, or why he seemed just a little off. At that moment, love blinded me. But looking back, I wish I'd asked more questions that night. I couldn't stop staring at the ring. Neither could anyone else. The next day at brunch, my best friend Kira practically gasped. "That ring looks just like the one Aaron's grandmother wore all the time," she whispered. "Didn't she pass it down to his cousin?" I froze. "No," I replied, hesitating. "He said his grandmother left it to him." Kira tilted her head. "Huh, weird. Last I heard, the family was keeping it in a safety deposit box." That was the first time I felt a ripple in my stomach, an unease I tried to laugh off. I told myself, families change their minds, right? But that night, I noticed something else. Aaron kept checking his phone like he was waiting for bad news. I had no idea it was about to crash down on both of us. A few nights later, I walked into the room just as Aaron ended a call. He jumped and turned his phone over. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just work stuff," he said too quickly. His face was pale, his smile forced. I wanted to believe him, but that little seed of doubt Kira had planted started to grow. I asked him again about the ring. "You're sure your grandmother gave it to you?" "Because Kira said," he cut me off. "She left it to me." End of story. I let it go, but that night I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was lying next to a stranger who was hiding something. And I was right. He wasn't just hiding something. He was hiding everything. Our engagement party was supposed to be magical, an elegant garden soiree with string lights, champagne, and all our loved ones. But the moment Aaron's Aunt Lorraine walked in, everything shifted. Her eyes locked on the ring, and she went still. Then her voice, loud and sharp, "That's Edith's ring. What is that ring doing on her finger, Aaron?" The entire party went quiet. I froze. Aaron's face turned ghost white. She gave it to me," he stammered. But Lorraine's laugh cut through the air like a knife. "Edith's been dead for a year. That ring was locked in her deposit box. Until last week when it went missing." Gasps. Whispers. My heart dropped. And that's when I realized. The man I said yes to might not be who I thought he was. Aaron pulled me aside as the party erupted into chaos. "I can explain," he said, his eyes desperate. "Please, just listen." I stood there, shaking, humiliated, every guest whispering behind champagne glasses. "Did you steal it?" I whispered. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I borrowed it. I was going to tell them. I just wanted the proposal to be perfect. I thought I had time." My stomach turned. "So you lied? To me? To your family?" He grabbed my hand, but I pulled away. "It was stupid." I panicked, he muttered. But I didn't believe it was just panic. This wasn't just a clumsy mistake. This was calculated. And as his cousin stormed over with her phone out, likely calling the family lawyer, I realized this mess was just beginning. The night went from magical to tragic in a matter of minutes. Guests started leaving, murmuring amongst themselves, exchanging glances like they already knew the truth. Aaron stood there, his face flushed with shame, his hand clenching into fists as if he wanted to punch something. Anything but himself. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't even speak to him. How could I have been so blind? This wasn't just a stolen ring. This was a stolen future. He had stolen my trust, and I felt like I was suffocating in the mess he created. As the last of the guests trickled out, I felt a crushing weight of embarrassment. Aaron didn't even try to stop them. He didn't try to fight for me. And that spoke volumes. Over the next few days, I tried to wrap my head around everything that had happened. I didn't want to believe that Aaron had stolen the ring, not just because it was his grandmother's, but because of the bigger picture. What else had he lied about? I started digging. I reached out to Aaron's cousin, the one who had been the first to react, and it turns out the ring hadn't been missing for just a week. It had been gone for months. Months. I was sick to my stomach, realizing that Aaron had been planning this all along. He knew it was coming. He just didn't expect me to find out like this. As I sat in the silence of my apartment, I realized I couldn't trust anything he'd ever told me. The lies were like a web, tangled up in every part of our relationship. And I was stuck in the middle. Aaron came to my apartment the next day, his eyes red and pleading. He wanted to talk. He wanted to apologize. But all I could think about was how he had betrayed me, how his family had to learn the truth before I did. He tried to explain that he wasn't a bad person, that he didn't mean for things to get this out of hand. I just wanted everything to be perfect for you, he said. I wanted the proposal to be special, to be something you'd never forget. But all I could hear was a man who thought he could get away with anything because of his charm. He wasn't sorry for what he did to me. He was sorry he got caught. And that was the hardest part of all. When I told my parents what happened, the disappointment in their eyes was unbearable. My mother held me, her arms tight around me as I cried. "How could you not see this?" she asked gently. I didn't want to believe it, I admitted. He seemed so perfect. He made me feel so special. My dad, usually the quiet one, finally spoke. "You don't need a man who thinks he can buy you with someone else's things, especially not with lies." It stung, but they were right. I didn't need him. I didn't need any of the lies he had wrapped around me like a blanket. But as much as I hated to admit it, I didn't know how to let go. I didn't know if I could walk away from him. Even now, with the truth staring me in the face, my heart still ached for the man I thought I knew. I spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. Every time I thought about Aaron, my heart tugged with that familiar longing. I wanted to believe he was sorry, wanted to believe he had just made a horrible mistake. But the truth was clear. He had lied to me for months. This wasn't just about the ring, it was about everything. I had to ask myself if I could live with someone who would lie to me so easily, who would hide the truth from me until it exploded in my face. Could I ever trust him again? Could I ever look at him the same way? I stared at the ring on my finger, its beauty now a constant reminder of the betrayal. And then it hit me. I didn't have to make this choice alone. I could choose to walk away. It was time. The moment I had been dreading. I called Aaron and asked him to meet me. I wasn't sure how he would react, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. When he walked into the cafe, I could see the anxiety in his eyes. He thought I was going to forgive him, but I wasn't going to. I couldn't. I told him, point blank, that I couldn't marry him. The silence between us was suffocating, the weight of my words hanging in the air. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. "I don't know you anymore," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "And I don't think I ever did." His face crumpled, but there was no turning back. I had made my choice. Aaron didn't take the breakup well. He begged. He pleaded. He promised that everything would change, that he would make it up to me. But his words felt hollow, like the same rehearsed lines he had given me before. "I love you. Please, don't leave me," he said, his voice breaking. But the love I had for him was gone. It had vanished when he had stolen that ring, when he had lied to me and used my trust like it was a game. "You don't love me, Aaron," I said, holding back tears. "You love the idea of me, the version of me you could control. I can't live like that anymore." I stood up to leave, but he grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. "Please, don't do this," he begged, but I had to pull away. It hurt, but it was the only way to free myself. The days following the breakup were filled with tension. Aaron's family, the ones who had been so welcoming before, now avoided me like the plague. They knew what had happened, but no one said a word. The shame was palpable. I was left alone, feeling like I was the one who had done something wrong. But I wasn't the one who had stolen a family heirloom. I wasn't the one who had lied to everyone. And yet, no one reached out to apologize, not even Aaron's Aunt Lorraine, who had called him out at the engagement party. I had lost more than just Aaron. I had lost a whole family that I thought cared for me. It hurt more than I had expected. But slowly, I realized that I didn't need them. I didn't need any of it. A week later, after I had taken some time to recover, Aaron's cousin called me. "I have something for you," she said. And when I arrived at her house, she handed me a small velvet box. Inside was the ring. The one Aaron had promised was from his grandmother. "This belonged to my mother," she explained, her voice tight with emotion. "It's been in our family for generations." When Aaron took it, he wasn't just stealing a piece of jewelry. He was stealing our heritage. I stared at the ring in my hand, its beauty now tinged with guilt. It felt like the final chapter of this nightmare was unfolding before me. "I'll return it to the family," I said softly. She nodded, her eyes full of gratitude. But as I left her house, I realized that the truth wasn't just about the ring. It was about everything Aaron had taken from me. my trust, my peace, my future. The days after everything came crashing down felt like a blur. I stayed home, surrounded by the silence of my apartment, trying to rebuild. I spent hours on the phone with my best friend Kira, telling her everything that had happened. She listened, offering her support, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was being heard. "You don't deserve this," she said, and hearing her words gave me the strength I didn't know I had. Slowly, I began to reclaim my life. I signed up for a dance class, took long walks, and even started writing in my journal again, something I hadn't done since I met Aaron. As the weeks passed, the hurt lessened. And while I couldn't forget, I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone steal my joy again. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when I ran into Aaron. I was at the local coffee shop, trying to get some work done, when I heard his voice. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, standing by my table. My heart raced, and for a moment, I froze. I hadn't seen him in over a month. He looked different, more tired, older somehow. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "I've been thinking about everything," he continued. "And I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, and I can never undo that." I looked up at him, feeling nothing but a dull ache in my chest. "You're sorry now?" I asked, my voice cold. "What about when it mattered?" As I sat there, staring at Aaron, something inside me clicked. The anger, the hurt, it was all still there, but now it was overshadowed by something else. I realized that I had already moved on. His apology didn't mean anything because the person I thought I loved wasn't real. The man I had been holding on to was a version of him that never existed outside of my imagination. Aaron had shown me who he truly was, and I had let that version of him go long ago. "I've already forgiven you," I said softly. "But that doesn't mean I can forget what you did. I can't go back to the person I was when I was with you." His eyes searched mine, but I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was looking for freedom. The process of rebuilding trust wasn't easy. It wasn't something I could just pick up where I had left off. But I started taking steps, small ones. I joined a group therapy session for women who had been in toxic relationships, and it was there I learned the most valuable lesson. That trust starts with myself. I had let Aaron's lies define me for too long. Now, I needed to redefine who I was without him. Slowly but surely, I began to trust myself again, to believe that I was worthy of real love, honesty, and respect. The journey was long, but each step felt like a victory. A few months later, Aaron sent me a message. It was short, a simple apology for the things he had done, but there was something different about it. He seemed to have finally come to terms with what he had lost, what we had lost. I didn't respond immediately. I took my time, reflecting on everything that had happened. When I did reply, it wasn't with anger or bitterness, but with a calm acceptance. "I hope you find peace," I wrote. "But I've already found mine." There was no need for us to talk anymore, no need for more closure. We had both moved on, and that was enough. Sometimes, letting go is the only real way to heal. As the months passed, I realized that everything I had been through had made me stronger. I wasn't the same person who had blindly trusted Aaron with my heart. I had become someone who knew her worth, someone who wouldn't settle for lies or manipulation. I started focusing on myself, on my career, my passions, and my friends. I began traveling more, taking spontaneous trips to places I had always dreamed of visiting. And with each new adventure, I felt more and more like the woman I had always wanted to be. The scars from my past were still there, but they no longer defined me. I had become the person who could rise above the pain. And that was my greatest triumph of all. The day I realized I had truly let go of everything with Aaron was the day I stood in front of a mirror and saw someone different. The woman who stared back at me was confident, calm, and at peace. The fears that once held me captive were gone, replaced by a sense of freedom I hadn't known I needed. I was no longer haunted by the mistakes of the past. I had finally stepped out of the shadow of a man who had never deserved me. And for the first time in months, I looked forward to the future. I wasn't sure what it held, but I knew I was ready to face it on my own terms. One night, I met up with Kira for dinner. She had been there for me through it all, listening when I needed to talk and offering advice when I didn't know what to do. "I'm proud of you," she said as we sipped wine at a quiet cafe. "I know it wasn't easy, but you've come so far." I smiled, feeling the warmth of her words settle in my heart. "It was hard," I admitted, "but it was worth it. I've learned so much about myself." She nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. You deserve better, and I know that when the time is right, you'll find someone who sees you for exactly who you are. I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future, knowing that my friend believed in me. Several months later, I met someone new. His name was Daniel, and he was kind, thoughtful, and, most importantly, genuine. We met through a mutual friend, and from the moment we started talking, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long: trust. We spent hours talking about everything and nothing, laughing at our shared interests, and enjoying each other's company. With him, there was no pressure, no expectations. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't. And with each passing day, I realized that he made me feel valued in a way I hadn't known before. It wasn't about grand gestures or stolen rings. It was about honesty, respect, and building something real, one step at a time. As the months went by, Daniel and I grew closer. There were no secrets between us, no lies to untangle. He showed me what it meant to truly be in a relationship built on trust and mutual respect. We traveled together, spent weekends exploring new places, and even started planning a future, one that didn't involve stolen rings or painful pasts. With him, I felt safe. I felt loved for who I truly was, not for the image someone else had created. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Together, Daniel and I were building something that felt right. And that was everything. One evening, as we walked along the beach during a weekend getaway, Daniel stopped me and turned to face me, a small box in his hand. My heart skipped a beat, but it wasn't the nervous flutter of before. It was a feeling of complete certainty. He smiled at me, his eyes full of warmth. I know we've only been together for a short time, but in that time, you've shown me what it means to love someone without conditions. You've shown me your strength, your kindness, your heart. I can't imagine my life without you in it. Will you marry me? As he opened the box, inside was a simple, elegant ring. Nothing extravagant, nothing stolen. Just a symbol of the love we had built together. Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, the joy I felt overflowing. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I will. The days following Daniel's proposal were filled with joy and excitement. We began planning our wedding together, and everything felt so different from before. There was no deceit, no fear of betrayal, just pure happiness. I was finally in a relationship where trust was the foundation. We discussed everything, our dreams, our future, and even the little details of our wedding day. Daniel was patient, understanding, and always made sure my voice was heard. It was everything I had ever wanted, and yet, it felt so much more. I realized that what we were building was not just a wedding. It was a life together, full of love and respect. I had found someone who truly saw me. When the day of our engagement party arrived, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. The guest list was small, made up of close friends and family, and I was excited to celebrate with the people who truly cared about us. As we entered the venue, the warmth of the room wrapped around me. But when I saw Aaron in the corner, my stomach dropped. He was sitting with his parents, looking as uncomfortable as I felt. I hadn't seen him in months, and I wasn't sure how to act. I glanced at Daniel, and he squeezed my hand reassuringly. "We're in this together," he whispered, and I knew he meant it. We made our way over to greet our guests, but my eyes kept drifting back to Aaron, who seemed to be watching me intently. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. As the night went on, Aaron tried to approach me several times, but I kept my distance. I didn't want to engage with him, not when I had finally found peace in my life. But then, something unexpected happened. Aaron stood up, walked toward me, and this time, I didn't pull away. "I just wanted to say that I'm happy for you," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "I know I messed up, and I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to fix. But seeing you with Daniel, seeing how happy you are, it's the only redemption I can ask for." For a moment, I just stared at him, unsure of what to say. The years of hurt, the lies, all seemed to fade away in that instant. "Thank you," I said finally. "That means more than you know." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was closure, and that was enough. Later that evening, I was standing outside, catching my breath, when I saw Aaron approach again. This time, his expression was different, more somber. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice shaky. I was already bracing myself for more revelations, but what he said next shocked me. "The ring," he began, "the one I gave you when I proposed, It wasn't actually my grandmother's. I lied. I stared at him, my mind racing. What do you mean? I asked, my voice trembling. I had it custom made, he admitted, his face reddening. I told you it was her ring because I thought it would make you love me more. But it was never hers. It was just a ring I picked out because I knew you'd like it. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. You didn't just steal from your family, Aaron, I said, my voice cracking. You lied about something that meant so much to me. He hung his head, unable to meet my gaze. For a moment, I just stood there, processing the depth of his dishonesty. But then I remembered something important. I wasn't that woman anymore. I had moved on, and nothing Aaron did or said could change that. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The weight of Aaron's actions no longer had a hold on me. I had spent so many months grappling with the past, but now I realized that I didn't need to hold on to it anymore. I had built a new life, one that was filled with honesty, trust, and love. Daniel and I continued to plan our future, and every day felt like a step towards something beautiful. I looked back at my time with Aaron not with anger, but with understanding. He had been a part of my journey, but he no longer defined me. As I walked toward my new life, I knew that no stolen ring or broken promise could ever take away the happiness I had found. The future was mine to create, and it was going to be everything I had ever dreamed of. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.